Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Indie Reads Aloud. I love doing this program because the books that we get to explore and hear a little bit about are so cool. We have the best indie authors in the world. Today, we are going to be visiting with Ian Tadashi Moore again. You're so wonderful, Ian. Thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
So Ian does this amazing thing. He writes and illustrates children's books that masquerade as, I should say, books for adults that masquerade as children's books.
Yeah, it's
These,
definitely a goal.
yeah, you're meeting the goal. Absolutely. These are amazing stories. And Ian's going to share another one with you today. Let me tell you a little bit about Ian for those of you who weren't with us the last time Ian read. Ian Tadashi Moore is a father, designer, musician, and artist from Southeast Michigan. He grew up talking to the bugs in the back lawn and plinking melodies on piano keys. He likes the sounds that words make, and will probably never act his age. It's okay, Ian. You're allowed. You're allowed.
Overrated.
Yeah. He has written and illustrated 3 books, Zōsan, Tama-ishi, and Where the Little Things Live. And again, he lives in Southeast Michigan with his wife and 2 sons, and they're wonderful. I adore them. So, Tama-ishi, we have it classified as middle grade fiction, but it's really, as I said, for everybody. Give us a little background on this story before we get into reading it. Just a little bit.
Yeah, where the idea.
Yeah,
The
where the
idea
idea
was. I remember it came to me like, I want to write a book about some kind of conflict between a little tiny pebble and a big, huge boulder. The original idea was very different. It was that they were going to be friends or something, and the pebble just wanted to be like the other because it's a little bit like my sons. My little son wants to be like the older son, something, some dynamic like that. Um, I don't really remember now how it morphed into this story of this mysterious boulder that's living in this huge valley that everybody's just afraid of because he's up there and nobody ever goes up there. But it eventually morphed into that kind of more mysterious story rather than this friendship story.
What was your favorite part about writing this book?
This book. I think crafting some of the scenes. I mean, I liked describing because I figured kids would have maybe a little less problem with it than adults, but you really have to kind of paint what's going on here because you're down in the grass and it's this whole world down under there. I guess kind of like, say, a bug's life or ants or something like that. But that was fun trying to describe what's going on without getting too expository.
Well, and the artwork is just spectacular. I mean,
Yeah,
the
that was
detail
fun
that
too.
you put into the art is so cool.
Thank you.
For those of you who have not seen Ian work, look for him on Facebook. Occasionally, he will post these wonderful time lapses of creating the art, and it's so cool to watch. It's very, very neat. So I'm going to read the description of the book, and then you are going to read. Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Excellent. Out in the valley where all the little things live, where the wind is swift and talkative. See, the dog is even excited. Out in the valley where all the little things live, where the wind is swift and talkative, a tiny pebble named Tama wants to help, but the others say he's too small. In his quest to be something he's not, he is curiously drawn to the frightening boulder looming on the mountaintop. In a journey across the valley, into the ancient forest, and down to the depths of the great sea, he discovers there's more to the mountain than anyone knew. I'm so excited to hear you read this. Ian Moore, will you please take the microphone and read aloud?
Sure, here we go. Well, first chapter here. I'm going to share my screen, I guess.
Yeah, for those of you watching on YouTube, check out this artwork. For those of you just listening, go check out the YouTube channel later.
Yeah, and there's audiobook samples on my site too, which are worth listening to.
Excellent.
First chapter is called Morn Time. For a little background, that's what my younger son would call when he'd get up in the morning. Is it morning time? So I, a lot of this was to encapsulate some of their language. In fact, just as an aside, before I even get started, this is a drawing of my younger sons here, right there, that the aunt is painting on the
That's
grass
so great.
when he was like 3. Okay.
Awesome.
And I like to have quotes for this particular book for every chapter. Everything has beauty, but not everyone sees it. Out in the valley where all the little things live, where the wind is swift and talkative, the number one thing you can do in the morn time is to wake up before the light so you can maybe still see the moon. In the morn time, everything is bathed in a sparkling purple blue. The stars disappear and the clouds become cherry pink. Flowers stretch their petals and the grasses shake off the dew. In the morn time, it's fun to spin round until you're dizzy, singing a song or two. Wake up, sing, day begins. Hello, sun, and goodbye, moon. The day cannot begin too soon. Why, this is how every morn time begins, don't you know? Ah, but you haven't met Tama yet. Tama is a rock who mingles among the grass with all the creatures busy and buzzing. There are shiny rocks and flat rocks, round ones and speckled ones. Some have sides you can count. Some are smooth and some are sharp, and they come in all manner of sizes. Tama is tiny and all round. I can't advance the page. You might call him a pebble. He rolls about during the day, finding friends to just talk and play. Whenever there's a hill, he just has to find the top so he can roll to the bottom like a rush of wind. He waits for the stars to peek out at night and loves when the moon is like a rock in the sky that makes all the clouds shine. One bright and shiny day, Tama rolled about the valley, all full of smiles. "Good morning, Anoki," said Tama. The Anoki mushroom family, with their shiny heads sparkling in the morn-time light, all turned to Tama, their smiles sprouting at the same time. "What are you going to play today?" they all said at once. "I'm going to try to fly again," shouted Tama. "What fun!" Tama rolled over the Genevieve, a blade of grass, who tilted to let Tama climb on her back. On top, he glanced over at 2 others, Keone and Percival, with a nod. They smiled and nodded back. "Here we go, Genevieve!" She flung him high into the air where Percival was waiting to catch him. Percival tossed Tama to Keone, who launched him to Genevieve, who catapulted him back to Percival. Round and round they went while Tama laughed and cheered. He had just climbed aboard again when a large round rock sped by in a terrible rush. Percival twisted himself so Tama could roll to the ground on a spiral slide. "What are you doing, Maru?" Maru stopped. We're making a bridge," he said, gesturing ahead. He wouldn't keep his eyes on Tama and kept trying to move. Tama saw the gathering of rocks on the edge of a rushing rapid of water. "Why?" asked Tama. The rain made a new stream of water last night, and the ants need our help getting across," he said. "Oh, can I help?" asked Tama. Maru took a long look at Tama before taking a deep breath, holding it as if the words didn't want to come out. "Sorry, little guy. Not today." He started rolling again. "Why not? I want to help," pleaded Tama, trailing behind. "It's too dangerous," said Maru. "You might get lost at the bottom or fall in the water and get swept away." "Well, I've always wanted to help build something," said Tama. "No one's ever asked before, but I've watched so many times I think I get it, and—" "You're not big enough to help," Maru interrupted. He lowered his eyes and rolled away, leaving Tama astonished and alone. Chapter 2. Big. You'll never know who you are unless you shed who you pretend to be. Rocks gathered by the water, and Tama watched from a distance. Round ones rolled over by themselves, while others were carried by the ants. As they showed up, everyone discussed where they might fit in the bridge before the new arrival hopped beneath the shimmering surface with a plip. Tama inched closer, looking for a space in the bridge. Everyone acted as if he wasn't there, passing right by or bumping into him, too busy to notice. He saw some faces he knew in the water. They were chatting with the others, patiently waiting for the rest of the bridge to form. But Tama only heard one voice repeating in his head, "You're not big enough to help." He sighed and rolled away, but the words kept following him. Not watching where he was going, he rolled right into the middle of a puddle of mushy, mucky muck, smushing all over his head and face. He spit it out, shook it off, and circled around the muck, settling in a little beam of sunlight. Sulk. "They told me I'm not big enough," he mumbled to himself. The grass around him tried to flick off the muck. Tama sang them a little song. "If I could be bigger, they wouldn't tell me no. They couldn't tell me that I can't or tell me what I know. Bigger must be better. I'll find a way for sure. I'll figure out just how to be more than miniature." A blade of grass patted him on the head with a big smile. But as she leaned in closer, her smile faded. "I know there's mucky muck on my face," said Tama. Well, she nodded, studying his face from both sides, before scooping up more muck with the tip of her head and offering it to Tama. Thank you, Fiona, but I don't want any more." He rolled away, but a little bump interrupted. The mucky muck had dried in the sun, leaving a tiny lump, spoiling his spherical shape. While he sat there shaking his head in disgust, Fiona smooshed the blob of muck right on top of him. He frowned at her, but she smiled and drew a big circle in the air with her head, and Tama felt a rush. "More mucky muck!" he shouted, so loud that a family of caterpillars jumped out of the grass as if they'd sprouted their wings. "Whoop, whoop," they blurted. "Sorry," said Tama. "Gotta find more good mucky muck." And Fiona sprang upright, her eyes sparkling. Tama noticed he would go bumpity, 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 bump, the lump on his side creating a bit of a rhythmic ride. Although it was made traveling in a straight line more difficult, he did the best he could, going this way and that, until he found a grand gathering of superbly soggy, gloriously gooey, mushy, mucky muck. It was cool and smelled of fresh rain, shaded underneath a large, leafy plant. "Thank you for keeping this here, Nori." "Do you want more sun?" she asked. No, thanks. Stay right where you are. It's perfect." He rolled right into the muck and covered his face, blinking to brush it from his eyes. The grass helped him shape it, and he went off into the sunshine to bake, making a pattern of it. In the muck, in the sun. Muck, sun, muck, sun. With each dunk and dry, he got bigger, bigger, and bigger. He was only a little dimple encased in the middle of a large, crusty sphere. Satisfied with his new biggish size, he tried really rolling, wobbling, and losing control over a dip in the dirt. He tried again and rolled right off the path. Again, and he finally managed to zigzag about where he wanted to go. "This is too slow," said Tama, "but at least I'm going." The surrounding grass nodded in agreement. Now, even if he had noticed the little bugs he almost bowled over, he wouldn't have been able to get out of the way in time. So instead, they rolled themselves into tiny balls and moved out of his way. "Watch where you're going, dung ball!" Sorry, but I'm not a dung ball, see?" He lurched forward, gliding right past a turn he meant to make. Quickly trying to change direction just didn't work. More than once he ran into a clump of crabgrass who shoved him back on track with cross looks. Everything was quite different from up high. He certainly felt bigger, which made it all worth the bumbling and fumbling. And after many mistakes and apologies, he started to get the hang of it, picking up speed and learning to lean this way instead of that. The bridge was nearly complete when Tama arrived, with ants already crossing back and forth. He almost rolled over a couple of them when he wobbled onto the bridge. "Hey, everybody, I'm here, I can help!" Some of the ants dropped what they were carrying into the water and jumped out of the way, while others stopped dead in their tracks, their antennae fluttering. The bridge trembled as rocks shifted to see what was going on. Part of the bridge collapsed under Tama's weight. "Stop moving!" some of the rocks yelled. "We're all gonna fall!" the others screamed. "Where should I go? Where will I fit?" asked Tama. A rock on the bridge recognized Tama's voice. "Tama? Is that you?" "Rocco?" Tama turned too quickly. The world started tilting to one side, and no matter how much he tried, the rest of him wasn't listening to what he wanted to do. He tumbled off the edge of the bridge and hit the water, and the water hit his face in a bright flash. "Tama heard Rocco's muffled voice from above the surface fading away as he sank. Water found a way through the cracks in his shell, and Tama felt a pinch of cold on his back. A large chunk broke free. He started sinking faster, and more pieces flaked off and trailed behind him as he sank to the mushy riverbed. Back to his plain old small self again, he was free to move about as he pleased, but he didn't care. The current had pushed him downstream, and he could still see the rocks in the bridge, staring and talking amongst themselves. More chunks of his former self caught up with him and sank next to him. Others ran away with the current. One hit him squarely on the head, and a few of the rocks in the bridge chuckled. Embarrassed at all the sudden attention and worried about what damage he might have done, Tama looked the other way. A few bits of his former self were swept into a small white cave downstream. He rolled over to see, past all sorts of interesting things, like a wispy, whirling cloud dancing with the currents, stuck to a stick, not getting anywhere. "What are you doing here?" asked Tama of the wisp, but it only tossed and tumbled with the water. "You can try and run, but you won't get very far," said Tama. Just outside the cave, he noticed a shiny thing that looked like he could hide inside, so he nestled into the ground to get underneath. With that, he rolled out of the water, away from the chaos at the bridge, hiding in his new hat. Chapter 3. Biggest. Curiosity will conquer fear, even more than bravery will. When he arrived home, the mushrooms and grass followed the silent, shiny thing strolling across the ground until Tama popped out from underneath. Some leaned over, pointed to Tama's collection of tiny little trinkets, a pile of colorful, wonderful things, hoping the new addition would get placed next to them. But Tama let it flop in front of him, turned around without another word. "You can't be big," said a voice in his head. He let out a big sigh and rolled into the grass, hoping that wandering would let his thoughts do the same. But they spoke again as he stared at a large mound of dirt. "You can't." He shivered and noticed darkness blanketing the ground. Is it nighttime already? Another voice echoed inside, which, unlike the first, often asked questions. As he sat and pondered the answer, he felt a little better already. The grass pointed ahead at the line, dividing the worlds of sun and shadow. Rolling it out into the light, he turned around, looked up, and shivered again. Korribu. It was the name given to the ominous boulder looming high on the mountaintop. It meant watchful one. He was visible from as far away as the Nawaki forest, but no one ever went near that mountaintop. Most even avoided his shadow as they considered it bad luck. The grass fidgeted and jumped as Thomas strolled amongst them. Most looked like they hadn't slept in a long time. It was no surprise, given the stories that were whispered throughout the valley. "He'll crush you if you dare come too close," said Tama to the grass. They nodded and huddled together. He rolled closer and opened his eyes wide. "He's impatient, angry, and doesn't listen to anyone." Some of the grass stumbled and fumbled, trying to hide behind the others. "He watches you and knows what you're doing." The grass shook their heads, pleading him to stop, but Thomas squinted his eyes, smiled a mischievous smile, and went on. "In the skies, cold as ice, he waits and waits and waits for you. But if you're wise, heed this advice. Stay far from Korobu. He stared at the mountaintop again and realized it was no laughing matter. Korobu's face loomed large, two gigantic eyes, crushed half asleep under the weight of his brow. A jagged rift of a mouth cut across below the eyes and turned down at the edges. It felt like he might fall at any moment. Sorry, everyone, he said. Tama felt an urge to run, but instead was frozen, eyes fixed on that face. A quiet rumble shook the skies as the two gargantuan eyes blinked and looked somewhere else. Why are you up there? Asked the curious voice. Run away! The first voice interrupted and started to argue. How cold is it up there? Too cold! You'll freeze! What is he looking for? Looking for someone to crush? Lost in thought, listening to this debate, he rolled in towards the mountain. The grass looked horrified and frantically tried to get his attention. Why is he so angry? Because he hates everyone. Well, how big is he anyway? Terrifyingly big. The two voices continued to disagree. How did you get there? It doesn't matter. But Tama kept rolling up the path. Don't do it. Stop. The lush green of the valley was gone, the ground bare and hot, parched from the relentless sun. The last blade of grass, standing all alone, never took its eyes off Tama, shaking its head slowly in a desperate plea, silent plea. He started singing something to distract himself. Scared? Of what? Spooked? Not me. I can see where I'll be. What more do I need? Why do you frown so and stare down below, searching and searching for what? I don't know. Turn around, the voice said. But the other voice would not be quiet either. What does he think about all day? Korobu was terrifying enough from below, and he was only growing larger as Tama got closer. But the questions kept going, and after a while, he didn't hear the other voice at all. What does it look like from up there? Who else is up there with him? At the top, all that greeted him was a lonely, whispering breeze, gently nudging him back down the path as it whistled by. Korobu didn't notice him as he rolled right in front at the edge of the cliff. The massive monolith blocked out the sun and hid Tama in the shadow. Can he touch the sun from up here? All Tama could see was a breathtaking silhouette, the sun creating a bright outline around Korobu's head. The breeze whistled, another warning. Is he breathing in the clouds? How many dunks in the mucky muck would it take to get that big? And the clouds drifted by. Tama waited for something to happen, but nothing did. Excuse me, he finally squeaked, and the ground shook. Korobu's already enormous eyes grew impossibly large and turned below to find Tama struggling to stay away from the edge of the cliff. Tama felt a snap and a spark inside. Get out of here! He raced back down the path so fast he hit a bump, lost control of his roll, and tumbled into the air. Bumps jumped in his way, and he stumbled sideways, but he didn't care. He needed to get as far away as he possibly could. I tried to tell you. Tama could still feel those terrifying eyes locked on him. He rolled and rolled and rolled as fast as he could until he collapsed at home. Don't ever do that again.
Wow. I'm just like, what a great place to stop, and yet I
28
didn't want
seconds.
you to stop. Oh my gosh. How
I didn't really mean to be
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. That was fun to read. I haven't read that in a while, actually, believe it or not.
So cool. Wow.
Oh.
Thanks. Yeah, wow. Wow, that's so great. Now this is available on audiobook as well, right? So those of us who want to keep hearing the story can find it.
Yes and no. Here's the thing. I am working on revising it with my son because a long time ago before I had revised this book, I had another friend of sons of mine do it, and he did a really great job. But I really wanted Elliot to do it. So
Mhm.
he's just a little slow on the uptake. So I'm remastering that whole audiobook, but you can still listen to the samples.
But it's
And my
really
other book has an audiobook, and you may enjoy that too. That one is
I'm
done and ready and good.
I'm so excited. So for everybody who tuned in today, check the show notes. That's where you'll find a link to Ian's website with all of the information about all of his books, audiobooks, paperback books, the whole thing. And I need to remind you, Ian does all his own artwork as well, and you really need to check that out. It's so super cool. Ian, thank you for coming back. I know you have one more book you haven't read for us yet, so will you
Not
come back
here.
and
I would
but
do it.
you'll
Yeah.
come back and do it for us again?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yay! Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have an awesome night.
You too.